Thank you so much to the Massachusetts Family Institute, to Refresh Ministries, for all of you guys for being here, and thank you to my beautiful girlfriend Lindsay for leaving Florida to be here in this weather. It's it's nice for a day, to come out and see it. But some of you guys, the mic is off again? Better? Better? No? Okay. No, we'll switch it. Thank you. I hope everyone heard my joke. It was pretty good. I'll say it again if you want me to. But a lot of you guys, you might not have seen the videos on PragerU. You might not know about my man on the street. Many of you guys might have seen the video where I dressed up as a Mexican on campus and went and interviewed college students about why it was offensive. They all told me how horrible it was. Then I go to Alvera Street in Los Angeles and I ask the real Mexicans what they think of it, and they all love my costume. They're the ones who sold it to me in the first place, right? So you might have seen some of those videos that I did, but if you haven't, I'll tell you a little bit about my story, where I came from, and why I am doing what I'm doing. So I grew up in Denver, Colorado, which is not really a place for conservative thought, I can tell you that. But Colorado has changed drastically over the years and just gotten worse and worse. It's now California 2.0 with snow. And so I grew up there my whole life. I was an atheist and I was a liberal. I thought Obama was the coolest. And actually, my senior year of high school, I ended up interning for a Democrat senator in Colorado. So before all of this, I was very much so on the left. Everything changed when I went to college. I went to CU Boulder, which we called the People's Republic of Boulder. It was a terrible, terrible place. And I went there and I was an English major, which was a useless degree. And I was in a sociology class, which was a useless class. And there's a black girl sitting next to me in this class, and my teacher in the class points at me and points at the black girl and says, "You are oppressing this girl next to you because of the color of your skin." And I'm looking at this girl and she's looking at me, and we're like, this is really awkward right now. I don't know what's going on. But I didn't feel like I was oppressing someone, and this girl didn't feel like I was oppressing her, but this teacher at a $50,000 a year university gets to come and tell me that I'm oppressing someone. This is how you create a victim culture in America, everyone. And so after that and a couple other things, dating a girl who was a huge Hillary Clinton supporter, and obviously, it's not her, don't worry, it is, trust me. But going through things like that, I eventually started becoming very conservative, watching videos, reading a lot of books, talking to a lot of different people, and I heard about PragerU and Turning Point USA. I started a Turning Point USA chapter at my campus. This was 8 years ago, so a long time ago when Turning Point was just getting started. And I started on my campus, and I would go on my campus and I would set up a table and I would just debate kids all day long. I would miss all my classes because I hated college. And I would just go on my campus and my professors would walk by and say, you missed class. I'd say, well, this is more important to tell people why abortion is evil. This is much more important. And so then eventually I found out about PragerU, and I decided to make a video for them on my campus where I went and I interviewed women and asked them what they thought about the wage gap. And of course, they all thought they were so oppressed and making so much less than men and all these kind of things. And I taught myself how to edit the video, shoot the video. I sent it to PragerU, which you guys know PragerU is the digital media organization. Sent it to PragerU. They ended up loving the video, and they posted it. And then shortly after that, they offered me a job, and so I said, okay. So I dropped out of school after 2 years in Colorado, moved to Los Angeles to go and work for PragerU. And that was just about 6 years ago. So then over the course of 6 years, worked for PragerU, living in Los Angeles. Horrible place to live, as I'm sure you can imagine. I mean, you guys live around Boston, so you know all about the leftism and all these kind of stuff, but I mean, all the videos that you see about California online that you read, these things are true and they are worse. For a year and a half in Los Angeles, 2 years, I couldn't go anywhere without wearing a mask, which I obviously refused to do not comply, And I couldn't go to a restaurant or a bar without being vaccinated. When I was unvaccinated, what are you supposed to even do? You're ostracized as a citizen living in a city like that. And so I said enough is enough. I left PragerU. God bless them for everything they did, but I had enough of Los Angeles. So I left Los Angeles, moved to Florida, started a newspaper called the Florida Standard, wrote 2 national best-selling not novels, but books. My first book, How to Win Friends and Influence Enemies, and then this book, Do Not Comply. I ended up just selling my newspaper about a month ago, so I no longer have that, and now I'm working on my 3rd book right now, which is all about the evils of Big Pharma and where we're going from there. So, yeah. So that is the abridged version of my political career and everything that I have done. But during that time, you guys are a very friendly crowd to me, which is I love seeing because I don't usually go to a lot of places where the crowds are too friendly to me. I do a lot of campus events with Turning Point USA. Turning Point USA sponsored my last book tour. They did my first book tour. And one of the events I did for my first book tour was at the University of Maryland. Now, if you know anything about University of Maryland, it's outside of D.C., and D.C. is just L.A. for ugly people. And so I go to this event. And it was about 300 people at this event, and it was completely sold out. We had standing room, all these kind of things, and I had about 50 or so protesters show up to come and protest me. They were saying, Will Witt's a Nazi, Will Witt's racist, horrible, all these things you normally hear. They had it written on notebook paper. This was how good their signs were. Notebook paper saying Will Witt is a Nazi. And so I go out to them and I say, hey, look, I'm sure that conservatives have said some lies about you guys, and I'm sure that the left has said some lies about me. Why don't we have a conversation and we can talk about these ideas? Like I said, the event was sold out, but I cleared out a row in the back and said, any one of you guys who wants to come here and listen to me speak, and then you can be first in line for the Q&A, and you can tell me why I'm a Nazi in front of all these people. You can be first in line. What did they do? They yelled at me. They screamed at me. More expletives. Not one of them showed up to come to my event and ask me a question. Why? Why do they not show up? I did another event. This was in Colorado at the University of Northern Colorado, which, you'd expect a warm welcome in my home state again, but obviously this isn't how these things go. I go and do this event. This is during COVID, during 2021. And I get there and the university says, Will, when you come, you have to wear a mask while you speak. The hell I'm wearing a mask. I'm not wearing a mask while I speak. Are you insane? And so I go up there. There's probably, again, about 250, 300 people. I have my bandana, because I would never wear the mask. The bandanas were at least fashionable, They at least looked like cowboy-esque, which is cool. I take off the bandana and I say, I will not cater to your delusions. I'm not wearing a mask while I speak. And so the school cut the mic, and about 50 or so Black Lives Matter protesters, these thugs, animals, they storm into the room. They start flipping tables. They're screaming at me. They're yelling death threats at me. They're pulling their masks off to tell me to put my mask on. We all got COVID that night. They're screaming at me. And eventually I see the cops come, and I'm like, oh, thank goodness the cops are here to put an end to this and to get these people out of here so I can continue my event, right? This is what I'm expecting. And so then the cops come, they come up to me, and they say, Will, you have to leave because you are making people unsafe by not wearing a mask. This is the state of American universities. And so what do I do in this situation? Do I say, okay, this is the end, I'm not going to do anything? I'm going to sit down and let these people run my life and tell me what I can and can't do? No, of course not. So what I do, I take the remaining about 150 people who weren't scared by the protesters and stayed to be at the event, took them outside into the middle of winter on the street in snowy Colorado, and gave the speech to them outside, because I'm not going to be silenced by anything or anyone. That is the way that we do it. I'm going to give you one more event that I did. This one, it's a doozy, so just bear with me. This was when I actually worked for Turning Point. For about 3 months, I worked for Turning Point. About 7 years ago, I was the field representative for Colorado, Wyoming, and New Mexico. And so this was, now you look at Turning Point, they have a field rep for like basically every county in every state. Back then, I was doing 3 states all by myself, driving all across the states to do it. And so I went to the University of New Mexico, and we were going to do an affirmative action bake sale. You guys ever heard of that? Okay, so what you do, you essentially have baked goods, and then you sell the baked goods to people for different prices based on their race. Right? So, it sounds a little abrasive. I get it, right? And now, after this, they don't let Turning Point do this anymore. So this was a past phenomenon. But I go and I do this event, and you got it. It's $1 for white people to buy it. It's $1.50 for Asians. It's 50 cents for Black and Mexican people. And then if you're Native American, we give you money. And that's how it worked. And so we're doing this. But the point is, it's funny when you're talking about it, but the point is that obviously affirmative action is racist in itself, because you're telling minorities, hey, you are more stupid, you are not nearly as qualified, you cannot do the things that white people do, so we need to give you this leg up. They treat you like you are lesser than someone of another race. That is what affirmative action does. And so that's what the affirmative action bake sale proves. But it's not the way that many of these people saw that. And they come to me and they're, again, get about a mob of, this must have been 150 people at that university campus. It's me and like 3 guys who had never done an event before, and they're scared out of their mind. I'm like, guys, it's fine, it's fine. Eventually they come and they're just screaming at me. They, again, flip the table and then they stomp all over my muffins and everything. I mean, it's terrible. And the news ends up interviewing me about it. It was a crazy experience. But I'm telling you guys this and these events that I've done to give you just a clear look at what university campuses are today. Yeah. You know, it's very easy to think, you know, some of you guys might be a little bit older than me and you went to university and it wasn't so bad. Yeah, you had your communist professor and those kind of things, but it wasn't so bad. These universities have turned into places that hate everything that you believe in, and that it's not just a desire to influence people to a different point of view that you might not agree with. It is a desire to take the children that you have grown up with, that you have molded, that you have raised, and turn them into something that is the antithesis of all the good values that you have bestowed upon them. They will be bereft of any of the values that you have given them due to what the university system does. Now, obviously, this isn't the case for everyone. You can have people go through and have these good values, but on the whole, people come out with some sort of terrible experience from these universities. I know that I did. This is why I left. I figured I could do much better work being outside of university than ever being in it. And there's a reason why I left. I had to leave. I really didn't have any other choice at that point. You know, you think about these people and these people going to my events and destroying them and ruining my events and yelling death threats at people who come. Why do they do this? Well, because the left is chaos. These types of people are chaos. Genesis 1:1, God created the heavens and the earth. In this moment, it wasn't just God creating rocks and matter and the air and the things that you can feel and touch. In this moment, God created order. God created order in the universe where before there was chaos. This is why the left hates God. This is why these people want to destroy the founding principles of this country that are based in Christian principles, Judeo-Christian principles. They want to destroy that because it is based in God and God is order and they love chaos. Thinking communism is a good idea is chaos. Right. Thinking that men can have periods is chaos. You know, thinking that America is inherently a racist country is chaos. Right. I mean, in the original founding documents of this country, you know, right now you see life, liberty, and pursuit of happiness. But you know what it said before? It said life, liberty, and property. But the founding fathers changed it from property to pursuit of happiness because at that time slaves were seen as property, and they did not want slaves to be a God-given right that you had from your Creator because they weren't. So they changed it to pursuit of happiness because slaves were not a God-given right to you. These were brilliant men. Benjamin Franklin started one of the first anti-slavery societies in America. You know, to think that these people founded some racist country is absurd. And it is, again, it is chaos. All these people on the left, all they know how to do is destroy. Where we want to create beautiful things and make a new world and make things better, conserve the traditions of the past to create amazing, beautiful things, these people want to destroy. The left destroys everything that it touches. Right. Think about something like the Boy Scouts. Boy Scouts for me was the most important organization for me growing up. I'm an Eagle Scout myself. It was the greatest moment of my life, getting that with my grandpa, who unfortunately passed away last year, but was like a father to me. And the Boy Scouts were everything to me. They taught me leadership. They taught me how to work as a team. They taught me masculinity. They taught me all sorts of different values and things that you can't really get anywhere else. And now what are the Boy Scouts? It's just called the Scouts now. They let girls into the Boy Scouts now. They now have a merit badge. I believe it's called Citizenship in Society, which is now an Eagle Scout required merit badge, which is basically just Social Justice Warrior, the merit badge that they have created in the Boy Scouts, and now everyone has to get Eagle rank. They have lost their core principles because the left has come in and destroyed it. Instead of the left coming in and creating a new sort of organization for little communist trans boys, you know, whatever they want, they come in and take an already existing amazing organization and destroy it because it's the only thing they know how to do. Or sports. I mean, I don't know how many of you guys have watched an NFL game. I don't watch sports myself. But, you know, every once in a while you go to a restaurant or the airport and sports are on. And what's in the end zones of the NFL game? Hashtag end racism. Or you watch the NBA finals and they got pride flags all over the stuff and the players are kneeling for the anthem. Sports has been destroyed by these leftist progressive principles. You know, instead of making something new that they can enjoy for those types of ideas, they come into something that is already good, that people love, and destroy it. Entertainment. Entertainment is another one. Think about all the amazing things in art and literature and movies and TV shows and all sorts of things that have been good, that have helped people, that in a lot of ways the art that we consume is part of the reason we live. It is beautiful that we view it. And what do? Take every single one of these things and destroy it and insert their principles in it and make it so that it no longer represents anything that is good. It represents something that is political and left. The Lord of the Rings, oh man, my favorite movies and books of all time. Lindsay will know I quote it constantly. I can't stop quoting it. And I don't know if you guys have seen this new Amazon show, The Rings of Power. Yeah. Some of you guys might have seen it. It's a Lord of the Rings kind of spin-off from Amazon about the Lord of the Rings. And they have completely destroyed the show. I mean, different sorts of different racist elements and struggles of femininity and Middle Earth and all these kind of things. And I know I sound like a big nerd right now to you guys who don't watch it. But if this is something that you really care about and someone comes in and totally destroys it, if it's something that you guys like that might be different than Lord of the Rings, then you really understand how these people come in and destroy all of these different things. You know, and it can be kind of easy right now for us to look at the world at large and, you know, there's no more COVID lockdowns, no more Black Lives Matter people rioting in the streets. And we can think, hey, you know, the world is getting a little bit better. Maybe things are starting to pick up. People are you know, we just saw the Iowa caucuses. People are coming out to vote even if it's really cold outside and doing these things. The world is looking okay in some respects. But when you look around and you see young people, you understand that we are in a crisis in America that I believe is worse than ever before in this country's history. Mm-hmm. The number one thing is godlessness. Yeah. And godlessness causes nihilism. And it causes our youth to have no sense of purpose in their lives. It is the number one thing that is turning people to the left. You know, I don't know if you guys know the philosopher Friedrich Nietzsche. Friedrich Nietzsche had a very famous line where he said, "God is dead and we have killed him." Right? The West has killed God, but people are naturally inherently religious in some sort of respect, whether it's to vanity or whatever else. And so what comes in to replace God in the West? Leftism. Leftism becomes a new god. The colleges and universities give leftism as the new religion to all of these young people and say, okay, your new life meaning is to talk about trans issues, to save black people from under the foot of the white oppressor, to come and help LGBT people, to save the world from climate change. They're very selfish ideologies, you understand, because instead of them saying, okay, Jesus is my Savior, He died for my sins. What a beautiful, amazing thing. It is now, I am the Savior. I am the one who is the main character of my life and the whole world, and everything should revolve around me because I'm such a good person helping all these disenfranchised people in this country. And they know that if people are lacking God, they can get them to do whatever they want by putting them into this religion of leftism and making it all about them. It's very intoxicating. It's very selfish. It's very indulgent for people to want to be a part of this. But it makes perfect sense. You know, I went on the street and I talked to thousands of young people about all sorts of issues on college campuses and all these things. I can tell you, the way that they think about these things is an inch deep. Yeah. When I go and question them and totally change their minds on something, I mean, you just see like everything changes. Like their face falls off and become a totally new person with some of the things that they say. No one has taught them these differences of ideas. One time I was in an Uber and I was heading to an event and I looked nice. I was in a suit. I was going to go give a speech. And my Uber driver, she's this Mexican woman, and she says, "Oh, you look very nice. What do you do? Where are you going to do?" I said, "I'm going to give a speech. I'm in politics. I'm going to give a political speech." And she said, "Oh my goodness, that's so great that we have these young people getting Trump out of office. Thank you so much." I was like, "Yeah, sure. That's exactly what I'm doing." But you know, out of curiosity, and that it might make a good story, I go and I talk to this lady and I ask her about, you know, what she feels about issues, not revealing what I do. And she tells me she is for fathers in the home. She's against the welfare state. She was against the LGBT agenda. And she was a school teacher when she wasn't an Uber driver. And she didn't want these trans bathrooms in her school. And it was like everything that this woman believed in was a conservative principle. Probably exactly what Trump was saying, you know, exactly. Everything Trump was saying. But she said that she was a Democrat and she hated Trump. Most people have never heard these types of ideas before. We can look at the university system and look at the young people and say, man, they're so stupid, they're so brainwashed, these kids are horrible these days, and all these kind of things. But I don't put all the blame on them. I don't put all the blame on them, because there are evil, horrible people in charge of this country, in charge of the universities, in charge of the entertainment industry, who know exactly what they are doing to make people into docile sheep. If any of you guys have read the book Brave New World, it's one of my favorite books, because what they do in that book to create the sort of dystopia, utopia they call it, but dystopia is through positive reinforcement, right? Positive reinforcement is the action of, instead of doing negative reinforcement where someone does something wrong and you punish them for it, you instead take the actions that they do and you reinforce them, saying that they're a good thing. So what you have in America today is a loop of people doing immoral things, doing things for themselves, talking about these leftist principles, and then they get positive reinforcement from the elites, from the culture, from society at large, from their peers who don't know any better, and it creates this system where it protects itself. And the people who stand above, who say, I want nothing to do with this culture, I want nothing to do with this society, well, they are chastised, they are ostracized, they are told that they are horrible people. They are shunned from society because they dare to think differently than what the herd is supposed to think. It's really quite depressing when you think about it, of the place that we are in this country. But there are answers. You have these elites who are in control of us. Like I said, I'm writing my next book about Big Pharma. It makes my blood boil to think about these people and what they have done to our country. In 2019, Pfizer made $19 billion, right? $19 billion. You know how much they made in 2022? $105 billion. 5 times the profit. They're making $1,000 every single second of every single day, Pfizer, on a vaccine that was funded not out of their own benevolence, not funded by them, funded by the taxpayer. You guys funded the research for a vaccine that doesn't even work and has hurt people, damaged people irreparably by taking this vaccine. And you know what happens if you take one of these vaccines and you get injured by it? You can't go to Pfizer. You can't go sue them for the damages that were caused. No, you have to go to the government, the Vaccine Injury Compensation Fund, and get paid out by who? Who then pays those damages? You. The taxpayer then pays for the damages that a vaccine from one of the wealthiest companies in the world did to you. If you go to a restaurant and you eat a burger and it gives you food poisoning, you can sue the restaurant for giving you a faulty product that made you sick. If you go on a plane and the wing falls off while you're flying, if you make it and you get back down, you can sue the airline for malfunction in their plane, right? You can do these kind of things. The company should be held liable. But no. You take a vaccine, not just a COVID vaccine, any vaccine. You take one of these vaccines, you have an injury from it, you have to pay for it. You get injured, you're then paying yourself back with the money from this agency, which is, of course, incredibly bureaucratic and terrible and doesn't work anyway. There's a film called Mama Has a Mustache. Have any of you guys heard of this film? It's a film about these little 5 to 10-year-old kids, and they're being interviewed by some people, and they're asking, can you be trans? If someone likes blue, can they really be a girl? These kind of questions. And of course, these kids they're adorable, and they're answering these questions and stuff, but of course, it's just horrible indoctrination, these kind of things. The person who made this movie, who is of course a professor, they always are, wanted to get this movie into all elementary schools across the nation. Mama Has a Mustache. Now, who do you think is one of the biggest funders of this movie? Who sponsored the movie? Bayer Pharmaceuticals. Bayer Pharmaceuticals, which makes a drug called Lupron, which is used as a puberty blocker in kids. They also use it to castrate sex offenders, but you don't need to worry about that. But they make this drug and then promote evil so that people will buy their products. You cannot go and say that these big pharmaceutical companies are not the most evil companies in the world. They are spending $300 million a year on lobbying the government. That is more than any other industry group in the country. Big Pharma spends by far the most. They spend $15 billion on advertising a year. $15 billion on advertising. 9 out of 10 of the biggest Big Pharma companies spend more on advertising than they do on new cancer research. These companies do not have your best interests at heart. Anytime you go and see one of those ads for this shiny new pill or new vaccine or whatever it might be, just think about who profits off of the people who are doing this. They want you to be sick. Again, back to Brave New World. What do they do in Brave New World? They give you a drug called soma, which turns you into a slave, which turns you into someone who no longer has the capacity to think for yourself. That is exactly what they do that they are doing now with Big Pharma and what they are doing with our health and all of these things. So again, we're looking at the young people and saying, well, why are they this way? Well, maybe they're all told that they have some sort of ailment and they need to get on these drugs that are supposed to make them happy, or eating these nonsense foods, or being told that marijuana is good for you, and all these different kind of things, right? There are a myriad of things that these companies and all sorts of organizations are doing to try and keep young people down in this country right now. You know, it's very easy to look at our politicians and say, man, I hope that the Republicans get into office and really change things next year, right? I'm 27 years old, and let's even think about the time that I can remember, 15 years. For 15 years, I can't think of one thing that a Republican in office has done that has made my life better. You know, I can think of some things Trump did, and DeSantis now living in Florida, there's of course some things. But thinking of like some congressman or senator or anything like this, there's not one thing that one of these people has done to make my life better. We are looking, and I see the arguments every single day on Facebook and Twitter and Instagram of these political discussions that we're having and saying, well, we need to do this, and this politician needs to do that and that, expecting someone else to come and save us. No politician can come and save us. God saves us. Right. But people don't really realize that. And even the people who do realize that will not completely let themselves go to God and give it all to God. Once you do that, then you start to realize, wow, these political answers and these things people tell me, maybe I don't need to worry about these things so much because God has it under control. But when you spend your whole life, it's, you know, we talk badly about young people going on TikTok and Instagram and spending all their time there. We talk about people going and watching entertainment news and caring about celebrity culture and say that's bad. Where are the people coming and saying, well, you caring about the political culture in a way that is basically like tabloids is also bad? Because that is what our culture has become. We have elevated these politicians to the level of celebrity. We have told celebrities that you are now this amazing person and we need to watch everything you do on TMZ instead of saying, you are a public servant, I pay your salary, you are technically my employee, you should be doing the will of the people. That is the reason why you are elected in office. But that is not what they do. And then we expect them to change things. Every single person running for president or Congress or anything will always promise something and almost never deliver. There are very few exceptions. Very few exceptions. I think Donald Trump did a fantastic job at least shaking up the political landscape during his first term and making people realize that there is deep rot in this country. Right. He did it for me. DeSantis did a lot of great work in Florida, I think, with changing a lot of the laws and making it a much more conservative place. That's why I moved there. But on the whole, Republicans just don't care. They don't care about fixing the things that we care about. Republicans take just as much money from Big Pharma as the Democrats do. You know, Google donates to a lot of Republicans. PragerU, who I used to work for, sued YouTube for restricting our videos on their platform. They said our videos were not age appropriate. You know, educational videos about history, they're not age appropriate. So we went and sued YouTube on the First Amendment grounds. Google owns YouTube. You have Republicans who come and say, I care about free speech, I care about the First Amendment, yet then they take money from Google, who is restricting conservative speech on their platforms. Does that make any sense? Is that someone who you would say is a reliable person who you should count on for fixing the problems that you see in the world? Of course not. In 2016, we had the House, the Senate, and the presidency. Don't even think about getting abortion outlawed. We couldn't even get Planned Parenthood defunded. And it's like, who are you trying to impress, Republicans? You have the power to do something amazing, to do something that is groundbreaking. But they always want to find common ground. They want to find common ground with the left. Let's look on just the topic of abortion, right? If abortion is murder, if a child is a child from the moment of conception, that would mean that in God's law, abortion is evil. Abortion is wrong. It is that simple. If you believe in God, you really believe in God, then you know that God's law is perfect, and if you are in a position of power to legislate, that means you should follow God's law. It's that simple. But it's made not simple, and it's made into a political football issue by men, when it really is so simple that if you have the power to change things, you should change them in the perfect way that has been designed already. Think about an ideology like communism, right? Communism as an ideology killed 100 million people. It is the most evil, insidious, horrible ideology in human history. There's nothing good that comes out of it except realizing that it's bad. That's the only thing that comes good. I mean, 100 million dead, you're not even thinking of the economies that are destroyed, the families that are separated, the women that are raped, the sheer horrible loss that comes from communism. Yet, we have essentially democratic socialists, communists in offices in America today. I lived in California. These people are communists. Build Back Better, Green New Deal. These are communist agendas. Right. And what do Republicans say? Do they throw these people out? Do they say, no, you cannot have these kind of things, these are evil? No, they say we find common ground with them. We find common ground with the enemy and we sacrifice the truth to appease people. You cannot find common ground with evil. If the devil walked into this room right now and sat down next to any of you guys, would you let him sit down next to you? Would you hang out with him and give him a drink? I would hope not. So why is it that when we see evil happening in front of us and the people who we've elected, these Republicans, because they would answer that question the exact same way. They'd say, no, of course I'd kick them out. Well, then why do you not end abortion in this country? Why do you not end transgender surgeries on children and just make it illegal? Why do you not end any of these things? They do it because they want to find common ground. Common ground is the reason why we lose. And then we have conservatives who are constantly trying to point out the hypocrisy of the left and say, well, you know, they're hypocrites for this, they're hypocrites for that, when in reality the left doesn't care about hypocrisy, they care about power. We can call out the hypocrites every single time and say, listen, you are wrong, but if someone has a gun to your head and you say that is morally wrong for you to shoot me, they can still shoot you, even if it is morally wrong for them to do so. The left understands that they have the power in this country. And the longer that we try and play on the grounds of saying, okay, we will find common ground and appease you, and we will just try and call out your facts as wrong, this is why we continue to lose. This is why we lose ground. And it's not about just, Republicans playing too nice and these kind of things, because we don't want to ever commit sin in the act of doing something good. But that doesn't mean that we can't be on offense and be unflinching in the ideas that we believe in, which we 100% should be. And it all comes through God. It all comes through God. I mean, when I got saved just about 3 years ago. Actually, to the day almost 3 years ago, actually, back in California. Thank you. And I got saved. My story, I was reading the Bible. I ordered the Bible during COVID. I was never really a Christian or anything like that. I was getting into the conservative world, and obviously there's a lot of faith in the conservative world, and I was trying to find out more about it. And so I was stuck at home in Los Angeles, and I ordered the Bible to read. And I read the 4 Gospels with the help of a friend. Excuse me. And, okay, I read the 4 Gospels, and once you do that, you have to make a choice, just like any information that's presented to you. You can either believe that it's lies, you can ignore it, or you can know that it's true. And for me, I read those words on those pages and was so moved by the testimony of Jesus Christ's life that I had no other choice but to give my life to Christ. It's that power. And you read this, and you see the perfect words that are within these texts and everything about it and how perfect it is. And you think, how can I be worried about these political issues and then putting my faith second, instead of putting the faith first and then letting the political issues follow? But we do it in the opposite way. God has the answer to all of these problems. All of the problems that we look at. They are not political in the eyes of God. They are political by us. And that is the problem. If we go back to a place where God is at the forefront of everything that we do in this country, then this country really can be saved. Like I go to universities, again, and I talk to students and young people all the time about their faith. And I ask them, are you Christian? Why are you Christian? What do you really believe? And they say, yeah, I'm kind of Christian, or maybe I don't really want to talk about it, these kind of things. I don't tell people I'm Christian, even though I'm a believer. And I say, do you know that there are people around the world who are not allowed to be Christian, who are dying for their faith? Christmas just passed. There are people, Christians around the world, it's illegal to celebrate Christmas. In China, they have underground churches where they go and celebrate Christmas. In China, they have concentration camps where they take Christians and mutilate them and torture them and tell them that if you do not denounce your faith, we will kill you. And they do, because they say, I will not renounce my faith, and they are killed for being Christian. You go to the Middle East and women, Christian women have acid thrown on their faces just for the fact that they're Christian, and Christian businesses are burned to the ground. You go to Indonesia and pastors' heads are cut off and placed on spikes outside of their churches to ward off people from going to that church and being Christian. And then you go in America and you go to the West and you ask someone if they're Christian and they say, I don't tell people I'm Christian. Or you have people around the world who are dying just to pronounce their faith, profess what they believe in. We've become so weak and so neutered in this country that we think that the likes of other people, the validation of others, of what they think about us is more important than what God thinks about us. We fear other people way more than we fear God. And this is why we lose. If you have the atheists and the leftists who don't believe in God and put all of their eggs in the basket of impressing other people and making a utopia on earth, that's what communism is. It's them trying to make utopia on earth. Then of course they're going to steamroll us if all we care about is the opinion of these people with ideas that are totally the antithesis of what we believe. This is why we lose. I'm trying to lay out a roadmap of how we have gotten here and where we go forward from here. When we talk about do not comply, we're not just talking about vaccines and COVID and lockdowns. I know that's what comes to a lot of people's mind. But do not comply is about so much more than that. It is about the nihilism that is sweeping this country. It is about the godlessness. It is about the laziness, the mediocrity, the not standing up for our values, the silence, the faithlessness. All of these different things are the things that you do not comply with because they want you to be a slave. They want you to be a slave. There are two types of slavery. There is the mental slavery and the physical slavery. And right now they have the American people in a form of mental slavery that is so tight they know that many people can't escape out of. But if you go and talk to people, you can. When I was in college, this was back in 2016, Trump was just announcing that he was running for president during that time. I was still a college student. There was a girl in my class, and at this point I didn't really know exactly who I was voting for, or really much at all about anything, except for partying, and this is all I knew. And this girl looks at me, she has a Trump pin on her backpack. I'd never met this girl. And she says, I'm voting for Trump. I said, I don't know you, but that's great. And I said, well, why are you doing that? And she ended up listing off all these different reasons why she was voting for Trump and why, America's corrupt and all these things going on. And I say, man, I didn't know any of this kind of stuff. I didn't know any of this was going on. And so then this was part of the reason how I found out about Turning Point USA, the Leadership Institute, PragerU, because this girl introduced me to a lot of it. This random girl who I had never met before in my life, who just started talking to me about politics in my class, about Trump. And because of that, I got hooked up with PragerU to then start everything I do, to now be in this place talking to all of you guys now and writing books and speaking around the world and all of this stuff. It can seem very much like, well, I'm one person in this room and I have ideas and I know these things, but what can I do? If every single person in here went and talked to someone else, think about the change that we could have, and did the conversations that they had with love. You are unflinching on ideas and you are compassionate with the people that you talk to. If all of us did that, we could make so much good change. And it can feel hopeless. It can feel like, man, what am I supposed to do? But just because it feels hopeless, or there's no one else around you who agrees with you, doesn't mean that you don't fight, doesn't mean that you aren't correct in the things that you say if they are objectively true. I think about the brave men in Normandy, right, on D-Day, who went and stormed that beach, who are in these metal boats, and these doors open. They're going to a country they've never been to before, to go fight an enemy they don't even know, just heard horror stories about. They're with their best friend who they've known their entire life. The door opens, immediately their friend gets shot right in the head. His body is carnage, destroyed, right? This is happening all across the beach. Thousands of people dead in seconds. These young men are getting off these boats and they are peeing their pants as they're getting off these boats to go and fight the Germans on D-Day. Do you think that these young men getting off these boats in this new place, you think they had a lot of hope? No. They were scared out of their minds. I don't think they really had any hope at all. But they got off those boats anyway. And they took that beach regardless of not having any hope of what the future was going to be or not knowing what the future was going to be. If those young men can die for my right to live, then I can live fighting for everything that they died for. Right? These men went into dangerous waters not knowing what the future held, but they did it because it was right. Even if it seems like you are alone in this world and the ideas you don't have anyone who agrees with you and everyone's against you and your city council and the churches and the work and your family even, all these people are against you. That does not mean that you do not stand up for what is right. It is the most important thing that we have, our integrity. We have our integrity, and the left can never take that from us if we continue to fight in the way that we should be fighting. I'll end with one other thing. And that in Exodus, when the female Israelites are standing by the Nile, and the Pharaoh comes up to them and says, if there are any males born among you, throw them into the Nile. And what do the female Israelites say? They say, we fear God. Mm-hmm. They feared God more than they feared the opinion of the Pharaoh, what the Pharaoh was going to do to them. If we all live our lives this way, where we care less about the opinions of others, care less about what other people are going to do to us, to say about us, any of these types of trifles that we deal with on a daily basis, and put God and truth and integrity first, well, I think we have a pretty good chance of bringing this country back. Thank you guys so much. God bless you. Thank you. Thank you.